going on, everybody? It is you know who and the place to be. And don't question why I got a hoodie on. It's hot outside. Little baby said it's the middle of the summer, but I got a hoodie on. But for real, it is hot outside, but it's cold in here. Okay, so don't even do that. All right. As always, I appreciate y'all for keeping the streams going. The deals that then came in, y'all. The pack then came in. The it's a lot going on. So as we know, my podcast, the niche is for us young mental health conscious millennials who struggle with decision fatigue, struggle with making healthy decisions. And each episode thus far has been a topic around making a certain decision, or we battling with making this decision or doing this, or why we should do this, why we shouldn't do this. But let's get into why a lot of us struggle to make decisions, okay? So let's get into today's topic. Today's topic is how childhood trauma affects our decision making as adults. The meme reads, "Don't be 35, still making preteen decisions." Okay? Inspiration, honestly, y'all, the inspiration really didn't have that many this week. My guess is from a quote. It says, "It's a war within yourself that never goes away." And it refers to PTSD, which we will have a brief conversation about as the episode goes. So before I get to rambling, I have a guest today, y'all, interviewing a good guy. Great story. What's going on, my boy? How you doing?
Man, I'm amazing, brother. Thanks for having me.
As always, so can you tell the people what's your name, where you from, and what it is, and where you live now?
Yeah, so I'm Michael Unbroken. I'm an author, speaker, coach, podcast host. I work with adult survivors of childhood trauma. I've lived all over the world, but presently you will find me in Denver.
Okay. So quick question, random. Where's been the best place that you enjoy living the most?
You know, I've had different seasons of my life of travel, but I would say for sure Chiang Mai, Thailand. I lived in
Okay.
Thailand for quite a while, eating food, living on beaches, practicing fighting, writing my first book. Um, they'll always have a love for me for Thailand. It's funny where I come from, people don't even make it out of the neighborhood, let alone have a passport. So I'll never forget just sitting on the beach one day, the sun setting. I'm drinking a coconut. I was like, damn, man, like this is crazy. So I got mad love for Thailand.
So what is your advice to anybody who says they want to live in a bunch of different places?
Go live in a bunch of different places.
Simple.
Man, look, dude, everybody overcomplicates everything, man. Everybody's like, I need to plan and I need a spreadsheet and I need the itinerary. No, you don't. You need to commit to something and go and do it. That's the problem with people today, man. They're always like, I'm gonna wait till everything's ready. It ain't never gonna be ready.
Never.
Ain't nothing in my life ever been ready. Never. And so all these people are hanging on. They're like, I gotta. My favorite thing, man, let me tell you this. People come into coaching programs with me and they will say something like, I want to travel the world. I'm like, all right, cool, cool, bet. Well, why aren't you? They're like, I got a lease. I'm like, and we will always find a way to make reason out of our decisions. We,
Always.
we will always. And so if you want to leverage, I got a lease, well, Godspeed, because ain't nothing going to change.
And that's the thing too, because like I come from the generation where as far as like the millennials, I'm 27, and we will just get up and go. This is the most traveling generation ever. It don't matter what job we got. And our parents, my parents especially, they was a generation of traveling. They think you need $5,000 and $6,000. But like I was explaining, I think to my mom one week a while ago, like the same stuff you do in your city, you can do in another city. All you have to do is prepare, as far as your flight and stuff, or however you get in there. If you want to catch a boat, a bus, however, that's on you. But or drive, because some people like road trips. I don't, but some people do, But and the thing is, and some people say it's a cheap way. It is to an extent, but I'm sorry, I can't do nothing over 4 hours. That's
Yeah.
just me.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm not getting in a car going nowhere. If I could fly, we have this crazy technology called airplanes. And if I can get in one of those, which take a tenth of the time to arrive, and the time is the only resource I cannot get back, why would I not get in an airplane? Talking
I,
about, I want to see it's the same road. It ain't different than it was yesterday. It's boring and it's far more dangerous, like for real. So give me that airplane all day.
so you kind of touched on it briefly. So what is it that you do? Like, what if people was to say, Michael Unbroken, I am this, or I am this, and this. What is it that you do for a living?
Well, first I'm me.
Okay.
There's only one me, and I'm me, and I own all of it, the good, the bad, the in between. All the stuff that comes along with who I am is secondary to the emotion and the feeling of me being all right with who I am when I look in the mirror. That's everything first. And beyond that, I mean, yes, I've written multiple books. I've spoken on some of the biggest stages in the world. I've got a top podcast on planet Earth. I've coached hundreds of thousands of people. And it's about helping people realize the truth that, like, it does not matter what has happened to you. You do not have to be defined by your past. You can heal, you can overcome, you can ultimately do the hardest thing we do, which is learn to love yourself and become the hero of your own story. And, to be able to empower people and give people the tools that I've discovered well over a decade of doing the work, to be able to transcribe my understandings into the world and create a precedent in the hope of dinging the universe and ending generational trauma in my lifetime. Man, it's an honor to be able to serve. It's the craziest gift.
Yeah, definitely. Because you definitely have an interesting story. So you talk about your podcast. First of all, tell us the name of your podcast, and then tell us how did it come about? Like, what made you start?
Yeah, so it's called Think Unbroken Podcast. You can listen to it everywhere. It's on thinkunbrokenpodcast.com. It started simply because, like, the truth of it is because my background is digital marketing and advertising. And
Mm-hmm.
and I understood 4 years ago the shift of media and just kind of watching what was transpiring. And I looked at it from twofold. And both, I'll be honest with you, is they are incredibly selfish. One, I knew and I realized I'd be able to learn from masterful people. Dude,
Mm-hmm.
I've had Tim Story, Tom Bilyeu, John Lee Dumas, Anna Lamke, Kelly Gorez, Dave Hollis, Nick Nanton. I mean, hundreds of incredible rock stars in the personal development space on this show. And I get to learn from them. And that to me is unbelievably incredible. And then the other side is I recognize as someone running a business who needs to pay employees, who needs to keep the lights on. We've got to be able to push people to the coaching and to the books. And look, I'll tell you this too, like, there's stuff that is paid for, like, for real, but everything I teach is on my podcast for free. When I
Right.
say everything, I mean literally everything. The books are, the coaching programs. I coach for free every Tuesday night. I'm always putting out content. We put out 365 shows a year. It is all free. And so it's my number one focus. It's not money. It is ending generational trauma in my lifetime. And so the podcast is, again, very selfish because that is my mission. That is the only thing I care about.
Okay. Well, it's one of those good selfish. I don't know why it's kind of giving me like the Batman kind of vibes, like how they had a police system. He goes against the police system, but he still has the same goal. So
Mhm.
even with you, like I said, it's kind of like selfish. Like I want to go about it this way, but it still has a great goal in the end. So hopefully
Well,
people
look,
can.
and I'll say this, man. Look. People get confused on stuff like this all the time. If you don't, if you are not obsessed, if you are not obsessed with the thing you are doing, don't do it.
That's it.
Don't do it. I love this. It's that simple.
And that's the thing because again, kind of going with that older generation, just having conversations with some of them, and they'll just kind of get quiet when you say certain things. Like, say, for instance, if you work in a regular job, but you're doing this on the side and you ready for this to go up, and it ain't there yet, but you know it's coming, and you make comments like, and you'll get it. Oh, I'm existing, I'm not living. They'll look at you like, shut up. What are you talking about?
Is there a problem?
Exactly. They don't get it.
But look here, here's why they don't get it, because and I'm heading into my late 30s, all right? So I got a little bit of age on you. And I grew up in the era of the same thing. You don't talk about emotions, go get the job, go to college, raise the kids, be in debt, have this pointless house, the whole nine. And the truth about it is, the thing that they are missing, I would say basically people 45 and older. And look, I'm totally stereotyping right now. I realize somebody's gonna email me. I swear to God, every time they do, it's fine. Just listen to me. The general consensus, right? So I'm just generalizing here,
Right.
of people who are Gen X and older are
Hmm.
people who will go and work the job and not rustle the feathers and sit in the back of the classroom and just say, well, I'll retire when I'm 65. And I just find more and more people are realizing, like, that's a farce. That's not real life. Like, that ain't the thing. And we get so tied up in the 401k and retire. Dude, most people die within a year retiring. It's crazy. Like, I have, my company has no 401k. There are no savings accounts. I am never retiring ever. I've already decided. And so, it's those people, when you tell them, I'm in this life, I'm creating, I'm building. If they want to belittle and bring you down, that's because they haven't yet realized the truth. Like, we are in the matrix, man.
For sure, Matrix.
Like, and I don't necessarily mean literally. Could we be? I mean, how would you know you're in the matrix, right? But what I do know is, like, I remember being a little kid watching that movie for the very first time. My mom, so dude, we were dirt poor. We were as impoverished as you could be. We were on WIC and food stamps and government subsidized housing. I was on food stamps for lunch. My clothes came from the Goodwill or the church. Like, we were the poorest family in the whole school. And one time my mom saved up enough money to take us to the dollar movie. I don't even think they have dollar movies anymore, but you could go see a movie for $1, and it was like a Sunday afternoon, and we're there and we're watching The Matrix. And dude, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was like, oh my God, we're in the Matrix. Like, it just made so much sense to me. And
Hmm.
and I realized, like, the truth of life, the thing that people are missing is we often bend ourselves to the world, and that's dangerous. That's a life unfulfilled. That's you placating. That's you pretending. That's you trying to be anything and everything you're not. Whereas the truth of real growth and potential and understanding who you are is about bending the world to you. And what that truly means is you show up as who you are while you understand two things. People are already judging you, and that has nothing to do with you.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's funny that you said it, because we're going to the next segment, which is, what does this have to do with mental health? So here's the thing, the whole judging thing. People are going to judge. When it comes down to it, sometimes some people haven't developed that I don't care mentality, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And they still stem from that childhood trauma of being teased, bullied, whatever, and they still become adults and they still are just engulfed with what society thinks about them. So, according to how childhood trauma adversely affects decision making, it says it's somewhat of a punishment. All right. It says, or a threat. It said it generally considered an effective way to shape human behavior. It is, after all, the foundation of our criminal justice system. But what if there is a subset of population for whom the paradigm simply doesn't apply? New research suggests that there is a group of survivors of childhood trauma. What is your take on that? That whole, there is a group of survivors of childhood trauma.
Well, look, man, let's go a little bit deeper into this, right? Go look at the research from Folletti, Kaiser Permanente, and the California Center for Disease Control. They did this thing called the ACE survey. Have you heard of this before?
I have not.
All right,
Tell me.
let me create some framework for you then. I think this will be helpful. So the ACE survey stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And what he did was a sample study based on Dr. Folletti, who had noticed something congruent across patients who were obese.
Mm.
And the congruency was that they all had some sort of massive childhood trauma experience, molestations, beatings, whatever that may be, right? And so
Hmm.
he would have these clients come in, they lose all this weight, and then they'd put it back on and then lose it and put it back on and lose it and put it back on. He's like, man, there's something here. And then just by, I mean, happenstance, really, one day a woman happened to mention that she was sexually assaulted as a child. That led him down this rabbit hole, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward, then you have this study. So the study consists of baseline 10 questions. Now, one of the things that you need to understand is that per the study, it estimates 83% of people have been impacted by an adverse childhood experience, right? I would
Right.
argue that statistic is far too low. It's probably 95, if not 97%. And the reason why is because if you grew up in a home like what I grew up in, where it's don't you dare talk about this outside of this house, and then you factor in non reports, right? And us growing up in a very different world today than we did 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago, you end up with this subset of people, right? Which is gigantic. Think about this. If there's 350 million people on planet Earth, or excuse me, I apologize, in America, and 97% of those people have an adverse childhood experience, then that
Mm.
would make actually the subset of those people being about 315 to 320 million people. Now,
Right.
when you look at the questions, and I'll just hit a few of them, were you ever sexually assaulted as a child? Did a parent physically harm you as a child? Was there a suicide attempt in the family? Was anyone in the family arrested or imprisoned? Did you not get medical attention when you needed it? Did your parents get divorced? Right? And I mean, just most people are going to hear that and be like, yes. So automatically that puts you per that study in that subset. And so what that tells you is something really fascinating. You go, well, to your topic, what does this have to do with anything? Well, think about this. Go deeper into the statistics. Depending on where you fall on that study, if you're like me and you're in the very small minority of that, where all answers of those questions were yes, I'm a 10 out of 10 on that. Less than 1% of people are. My childhood was fucking insane. Like, my mom cut my finger off when I was 4 years old. My stepdad put me in the hospital. I was homeless as a kid. We stole food to survive. I got high for the first time when I was 12. I don't have a high school diploma or a college education. Now, let's think about this a little bit deeper. You go and you look at the statistics on a larger range. Well, depending on where you fall on that scale, typically answering yes to four or more of those questions, you're going to be 5,200, 5200, 100% more likely to commit suicide, 2,200% more likely to smoke, 2,000% more likely to be an alcoholic. Then you add on other factors like pulmonary embolisms, heart attacks, asthma, diabetes, early onset dementia, and Alzheimer's. All of these things are a factor, but the question you really have to ask is, why are they a factor? Well, the reason that they're a factor and the reason that it matters is because when we grow up in a cortisol state, meaning that our sympathetic nervous system and our parasympathetic nervous system are out of whack. So here's how I explain it to people if they're unfamiliar. The parasympathetic nervous system, think about the word parachute, right?
Okay.
That's a rescue system. So what that is, that's your rest, digest, recover. That's where you heal. That's where you make meaning of situations. That's where you are in that purest state of relaxation. The sympathetic nervous system, that is fight, flight, right? That is, I am ready for war. I've got to protect myself. There's a freaking lion after me, right? That's built into our DNA. Well, the problem with that is when you are growing up in a cortisol state, meaning that you're always in the sympathetic nervous system, because cortisol is what triggers and fires the amygdala, the hippocampus. This is where you start getting adrenaline rushes, things of this nature. Well, your body never has time to recover, right? And so if you're one of these statistics of people, 97%. Well, what are the odds that you're going to have anxiety, depression, suicidal ideations, drink, smoke, anonymously hook up with people? It's unbelievable. So I know that's a very long answer to your question. The short answer to your question is, what does this have to do with anything? Everything.
Yeah. No, everything. Because everything everything affects everything. And that's a simple cliche answer. But if, like you said, if you were abused as a child, if you don't get healed from it, it's gonna affect the way you handle either your children or you handle people outside. Like typically, like the person who gets yelled at home or beaten, abused at
Mhm.
home, takes it out at the kids on the kids at school, and they grow up and they take it out on other people. I know examples of situations where people were abused verbally, physically, in every way possible, and then they had to take it from this person, but don't let them get into a place like a job or something, and the boss yells at them. They're gonna cut up because okay, I had to take it from this person. I don't have to take it from you. You know what I mean? And the people who dealt with, this the simple, the one with the whole molestation thing. In a lot of cases, like especially with the women and men too, they turn out to be the hoes. They're very promiscuous, not always, but in a lot of cases, it's like sometimes it's like one extreme or the other. Where they're either really weird about sex, like and then it's like the total opposite.
Well, but think about that deeper, right? So for context, and I don't think I've ever shared this when oh my God, I will literally tell you this right now. So when I was in my 20s, so I'm a little bit older than you, MySpace was a thing.
Mm.
And my friend, I've never had a nickname in my life except the one I'm about to tell you. I never share this, but I want to create massive context with what you said because I think that if you don't go deeper into it, people are going to miss something really important here. My nickname was MySpace Whore.
Okay.
And I don't think I need to say anything else. And so what that actually signifies, and when you understand people, when there's promiscuity, when there are these tendencies for hookups where, and yes, I do recognize we live in a hookup culture, fine, whatever, but the truth is that's always been a part of human nature. There's always the argument that human beings are going to be sexual because, well, that's what human beings are. Our mission, our goal, if you understand the human brain, really is at its essence, it's about survival for you to live long enough to procreate. That's it. Right. But then what happens is you add on this added layer of trauma, the thing that in my 20s I did not understand, which is, well, when you're going to hook up with people all the time, it's like an addiction. It's like cocaine or heroin or alcohol or video games or running, even like whatever
Sugar.
that thing is. It's that rush, it's that feeling of fulfillment. But when it comes to like sex especially, the thing that people are often seeking that doesn't actually exist in that moment is connection and companionship. And so you find yourself seeking the thing you've been denied for so long, but it's not there because you haven't built out the parameters of what human connection actually is and what that entails, which is empathy and kindness and collaboration and vulnerability and this sense of safety with each other. Right. And so when I was young, like I would hook up with people and then in the middle of the night, I would freak out. I'd have like freaking panic attacks. Like, man, I don't feel safe here. Is this person going to murder me? Like, just in the moment, it's like you have this amazing sensation. You're like, oh man, I'm high. Dude, I've never done cocaine. I want to be very clear about that. But I would imagine this is probably the closest thing to doing cocaine that someone could experience because the high is so freaking high and the low is so low where you're just like, holy shit, man, what is going on in my life? And so for the people who find themselves like I did in promiscuity, like they're especially if you're unaware and it's unacknowledged in your life, right? That's a sign of you looking at a coping mechanism probably, and look, and this is the hard truth that is going to be unsettling for people. It's often a coping mechanism for people who were sexually abused as children like I was. And so I sought that thinking like the person who yells, this is how you communicate intimacy. And so when you get deep into doing this work, what you start to unravel is all of these unbelievable truths that are both simultaneously freeing and fucking terrifying, because you're like, whoa, wait a second. This is who I am right now. And then you
Right.
recognize something really fascinating as you grow and as you heal. Who you are right now does not have to be who you are tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely. And that's just so, I mean, you definitely, took it there. You went, I opened the door and you just like ran in. So good. And I like that because it just goes to show you that even, and I hate to say it like that, I'm trying not to, I want to take it deeper, but it's just like, even when you do something or something happens, it's always a consequence.
Yes.
And I think that's the main thing. It's like, no matter, even if nobody knows, it's still a consequence on you and in some way.
The thing that I love, I was listening to Jordan Peterson recently. If you don't know him, he's a psychologist. He's brilliant. He said something that struck me really, really hard. And he said, in his 20 years of clinical psychology practice, he had never witnessed anyone getting away with anything.
Hmm.
And I was like, that's so incredibly profound, because there's truth in that. Why? Because you are always going to carry the truth of who you are with you. Now, that doesn't mean you can't eventually like let go of it and not be stuck in it. And certainly, for the love of God, don't beat yourself up about it for an extended period of time. I think at some point it is beneficial. You do have to kick your own ass sometimes to get your life together.
Right.
But ultimately, yeah, I mean, you're spot on. Like, there's no get out of jail free card. There is a consequence for every action. Consequence, good or bad.
Man. We only what? We almost 30 minutes in, but still. There's some good stuff. All right. So then it says, according to how traumatic experiences damage your decision making, it says, imagine that you were bit by a dog as a kid. From that day on, every time you encounter a dog, you have a sense of fear that the dog might bite you again. It then says you remember the pain and disturbance it caused you. This makes the dog a conditioned stimulus, something that makes you link an event to the stimulus depending on how you felt. The conditioned stimulus can encourage you to encounter specific emotions. It then says our visual perception detects the stimulus. The information is encoded by neurons of the visual cortex. After gathering enough evidence information, the brain will render this evidence to make a final decision. It says the process of enacting a decision in pursuit of action is known as the commitment point. So, this is the thing. I'm not scared of dogs. I know many people that are. That's a more simpler one, but I like that simple one because for those that maybe we went over the head with the last two, I feel like that one was extremely simple. Like, if you know what I'm saying? So, say for instance, you are stuck in that. You're one of those, somebody come to you and they come to you for your service and they say, hey, this happened to me, whatever, I've been bit by a dog, I'm scared of. Okay, I think of, I just randomly thought about, so the Maury Povich show, right?
Yeah.
Stay with me.
Go for it.
You know how those people had those weird fears. And like the one girl who used to run from the cotton balls, and it was another one where the girl, she ran from a jar of pickles, and it was a whole bunch of crazy things like that. So essentially, even though some people may say or argue it's not the same thing, could we compare this to the same as someone who maybe had the childhood trauma with molestation, if it's the same reaction in a sense for some people?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I think you're spot on, and that's such a very simplified way to put it, because it's look, at the base of it, it's causation and correlation, right? There is a rhyme and reason to everything that happens in our lives. Let me give you an example. Who's on the is that Travis Scott behind you on that poster?
No, that's ASAP Rocky.
Okay, I can't see it all the way. All right, so think about ASAP for a second, right? So he's a stage performer. He loves it. He like me, I love being on stage. Dude, I was in front of 10,000 people last April, the greatest adrenaline rush of my life. Like, I love it, right? Well, but think about this for a second. If, if
Mm-hmm.
you're in sixth grade, right? So you're in your developmental stage, Izzy, and you're in class, and you have to do a book report, and you go up there up front in front of everybody, and Miss Smith's right there, sitting at her desk, waiting for you to do it, and you stumble,
Mm-hmm.
and it's rough for you, and you get stuck, and you're stuttering, and you can't get it out,
Right.
and Miss Smith laughs. She's your teacher. She is the person that you look to for support, for guidance, to be the one who has your back. And because she laughs and the other kids laugh, and then she goes, "Don't laugh at him," but it's too late. It's already been embedded in you. This thing that happens is you have to recognize your brain. The surface of the brain is about protection. And so if the brain says, hold on, wait a second, if I get in front of people, I will be ridiculed and criticized. That feels dangerous to me. Well, why does that feel dangerous? Well, because if you were ostracized from the community 2,000 years ago, you're out in the woods by yourself, you're probably going to freaking die. And so the brain goes, I can never, under any circumstances, ever be that again. It's too dangerous. And so what happens is you're in this position where now you're like, oh, wait, I need to go and do this presentation at work, or start the podcast, or speak on stage, or say hello to that person across the room who I'm super attracted to. Well, because your brain understands causation and correlation and makes meaning of all circumstances and stimulus that occur in your life, it will go to that catalog. It'll say, wait, but don't you remember that time in Miss Smith's class? And it will automatically and autonomically stop you from doing that. And so instead of you moving forward and pursuing this thing, your brain actually sees that as a cause of potential death. And so now you can't do it. Whereas a person like me or ASAP, what we do is we go, what if I actually get excited about the prospect of this? Most people move into it with fear, but I move into it with excitement, because when you go look at the reaction in the body, it's actually the same. Fear
Yeah.
and excitement are the same exact emotion. The only differentiating factor between the two is awareness. So what happens is, like, let's go a little bit deeper, right? So
Yeah.
you're a man, just because it's you and I here having a conversation as guys, right? You're a man, and your partner goes, you never talk to me. And you go, man, I talk to you all the time, right? And
Right.
they go, no, you don't. I don't know anything about you. I don't know what's going on. You're never emotional with me. Like everybody, like, and you could be a woman having this experience too. I'm just, because we're
Right.
men,
Right. Right.
through this context, right? Well, think about this. If you were young like me, and you were disallowed the ability to have emotional conversations with other people, or worse, this, which is so common, if you cry, I will give you something to cry about.
Mm.
You learn how to stop being an emotional human being. And then what happens is your brain makes meaning of that and goes, wait a second, if I cry, I get hurt. If I'm emotional, there's pain. If I try to be me, there's suffering. I cannot do that. So I'm going to shut off completely. I'm going to have mundane relationships, unfulfilling partnerships, casual hookups, because at least there's some sort of human interaction, but I'll never fully embrace the fulfillment of love, of companionship, of companionship, of compassion, of all the things that one could have if they would do the work. So when you think about, is there the cotton ball thing being the same as the dog as child molestation? Yes, to an extent, because the brain is making meaning. That person could be terrified of the cotton ball. Look, this is insane what I'm going to say, but this is where I go with this, because I've coached people in similar situations. They're fear of the cotton ball could be because their mom used to stuff their mouth full of cotton balls and duct tape their mouth closed when they were a kid. Like, that's how dark this stuff gets. But that's why it's, dude, if I could teach anything to anyone today, it's to pay attention. Pay attention, because there is causation and correlation to everything that happens in your life. There is rhyme and reason. Your brain is an adaptation machine. Your brain learns, it grows, it takes information, it's malleable and plastic, it puts it together, and it puts it into this form that helps you do one thing: survive.
Wow. Okay. So this is my thing. And I'm going back to the whole conversation about the being on stage. Because even me, I get a rush from an audience, right? So the people who are scared to get on stage, start their YouTube channel, to start whatever business, I'm sure you've heard of the phrase imposter syndrome. Now, I don't have it, but we obviously can say, in short, a lot of times childhood trauma is the stem of, imposter syndrome. My thing with imposter syndrome is, because I know a lot of people, because like you just said, oh, if you get in front of Miss Smith's class and she start laughing, and now you always, every time you about to present something or do something where people looking at you, you're gonna always think about that moment and remember how you felt. And I think of how Maya Angelou always said, people may forget what you said, they may forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that case, do you feel as though that a lot of times people are fearful of taking those leaps of faith and leaving, those things behind, those people behind, and starting whatever because of imposter syndrome?
Well, I think another way to look at it also is they've never had a positive reinforcement about possibility in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I grew up in the hood. Nobody brought us up. I remember, imagine this, I thought about this the other day. I was having dinner with a friend, and I thought about this. What if our teachers did tell us, you could be a ball player, you could be a musician, you could be anything you want? No, that was bullshit, man. It was always negative reinforcement all the time. I remember that this came up to me this other day. In third grade, in my elementary school, on the wall, as you walk to the gym, there was a giant, those little cutout cardboard letters, and it said, be anything else but a ball player. What the hell kind of thing is that to teach a child? Why would we limit people? And so to your point, my thought is this: well, of course they're scared. They've never been allotted the space to be okay failing their way to success.
Right. Yeah.
I am such a huge proponent for failure. I believe you should fail every single day. But instead of looking at it as this catastrophic thing, instead understand the truth about life, that we are in constant iteration. What do I mean by that? Iteration is growth and change and development and taking data, pulling it in, and making a new hypothesis. Let's go back to the Matrix real quick. What happened to Neo the first time he tried to jump? He fell. Right? He fell. Everyone falls the first time. That's what Cypher says. Right? It doesn't mean anything. Everyone falls the first time. And yet, the majority of people who fall the first time will not get back up. Shame, guilt, ridicule, criticism. They're so tied. Their egos and emotions are so tied to the moment. They cannot possibly even begin to strive to take another step. But you have to understand the truth about life. We are iterative. As human beings, we are the greatest adaptation. No creature on planet Earth outside of artificial intelligence learns faster from failure than humans. And so when you're in this position of looking at iteration, and you go and you sit and you watch all the training, right? I'm just referencing this movie because I think it's really pertinent to this. Look at
Yeah.
all the training, all the downloading, all the information Neo must take in before he gains proficiency, before when it's on the line and he has to make the jump, he can be successful. Now, he could have quit between 1 and 2. Most people do. Most people quit. You will I'll teach you the most important thing. There's nothing more important I will ever teach anyone. You will never lose as long as you don't quit. It's literally impossible. Because on a long enough timeline, you will learn the skills that you need to be successful. Izzy, one of the things people need to do, this is gonna feel like a smack in the face, and it's meant to, because you need to hear this. One of the things that people need to do is reconcile the fact that what they want is not going to happen because they are not good enough yet. Yet. They have not put in the work. I will forever, till the day I die, I will be thankful to my mentor, Tom Bilyeu, for teaching me that. Because that single thought, that one word, changed my life forever 6 years ago. Yet, what I want, the life I want to build, who it is that I see myself being in 37 years from now, dude, I ain't good enough yet. I'm not even. Look, I'll give you context for real, because I don't want people to think like I live in freaking La La Land. Mark this moment, because I promise you, on a long enough timeline, everything I'm about to tell you will be true. I will be a New York Times bestselling author. I will have the #1 mental health podcast in the world. I will speak on stages with people like Tony Robbins. I will be a multi-millionaire and take my family out of generational poverty, and I will own a helicopter. But I'm not good enough yet. And that's the thing that I know about myself to be true. Why do I keep learning? Why do I keep growing? Why do I write more books, more podcasts, more business, more learning, more education? Because I'm not good enough yet. And you have to do, if you are willing to be unabashedly true with yourself and go and look in the mirror and recognize the truth that you've been set up for failure since jump, because all your teachers said, don't be a ball player. Now, look, if you're 5'1", 300 pounds, like, it probably ain't happening. Like, let's keep it real. I don't want people to be far-fetched about this, and if you're a person who you put zero, imagine this, dude, you're like, I want to have one of the best podcasts on planet Earth. If I didn't make any shows, how's that going to happen?
Exactly.
And that's the thing that people need to carry with them. You can have it all, but not yet.
And that's the thing, because a lot of times, even like with this, like, a lot of people, they scared to start. Like me, when I started, I knew this is what I was called to do. So, like, I remember the first few, what was it, weeks, seasons or so, it was dry. It was only 10 likes on Instagram. It might have been only 10 streams a week, and now to the point to now where you're getting triple, quadruple streams in days now is just, to me, just still mind blowing. To start from literally on SoundCloud on a mic on your couch, and the very first episode you lost your voice, to now this is just crazy. Like, I for real, it was like raspy, sound like I was doing spoken word. It was good.
I'll give you, I love that, and I applaud you, and that's why I came on your show, because I saw you've been doing the work. I don't come on people's show who hasn't done the work yet. I'm too busy. And that's not me being like hubris. Like, I'm busy, dude. How long did it take you to get this booked?
It took what? Because we started in like late February.
Yeah. And that's the truth. And I have people that I can't even see until June. I'm so busy.
Yeah.
But here's the point. We'll hit our 300th episode on one of my shows this month. The first episode 4 years ago, nobody listened, and I sat recording it with a towel over my head underneath a desk. How bad do you want it? Right. Look, man, some people just don't want it. And if you don't want it, fine. I will never beat you up about that. I'll never argue with it. But don't sit here and talk about I want it. You know what kills me, man, is the people who are like, it's my job's fault. It's the community's fault. It's the neighbor's fault. All these people. And look, that's playing the victim. And I will raise my hand because I played the victim. Did it very well. When I was 25, I was 350 pounds, smoking 2 packs a day, drinking myself to sleep, and getting high from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed. I know how to play the victim. It ain't that hard, but it takes as much energy to destroy your life as it does to create your life. But you got to want it.
Okay, you dropping gems, but I'm still stuck on the 350. So how tall are you?
6'4".
Okay, 6'4". How much you weigh now?
This morning, 214.2.
Wow, I thought I did some losing like 60, but you lost.
That's amazing.
I mean, it is. Now, I'm not saying it's not, but over 100 and something, like, what? That's crazy.
I had to, look, dude, you have to make a decision.
Yeah.
Who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? I ask myself every single day a very important question. Literally every day. I ask myself, who do I need to be today for tomorrow?
That's good. You got to put that in the show notes. So if somebody says, they want to get that shift in their mindset, they want to get out of playing the victim. So this was a good segue into this question. So they want to get out of that, their mindset of playing the victim. They may get to the point, because even with me, when I had first went to therapy in 2016, I had really woke up and said, I'm tired of feeling this way. Mm-hmm. So besides, obviously, like I said, I went to therapy, that worked for me. What's some good tips, or what's something they could do to, get that mindset shift?
Well, you first have to acknowledge that your life sucks.
Okay.
Like, that's a hard look, it's true, man.
I know. That's what I'm laughing.
True. And that's what's so hard about this for people, is we want to pretend that everything's okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. It's not okay that you're not showing up for your life, that you're underpaid, that you're in a toxic relationship, that you can barely afford food, that you smoke cigarettes, that you drink yourself to sleep, that your friends are not influencing your life in any positive way, that your family's pulling you down, that you don't read any damn books. It's not okay. And I'm speaking about myself. 10 years ago, 11 years ago now. It's not okay. You've got to be willing to face that. You are not doing what it takes to have the life you want to have. I realized when I was heading into 26, I had this massive, massive rock bottom, dude, as low as you could be. So this is at the height of everything I just said. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting on my bed. It's 11 o'clock in the morning. Again, I'm 350 pounds. I'm smoking a joint, eating chocolate cake, and watching the CrossFit games. Like, bro, rock bottom. Yeah. And I went in the bathroom and I looked at myself in the mirror. And I remember being 8 years old, and the water company had turned our water off. Now, I grew up in Indianapolis. I grew up in a major city in America. We were so poor. They turned our water off. They turned off our electricity, our heat in the winter, our gas. We got evicted more times than I can count. And this one particular day, I go in the backyard and I get this little blue bucket and I walk across the street to our neighbor's house. And for the first time, and there'd be many more, for the first time, I stole water. Think about that. And so as I'm looking in this mirror, thinking about that moment, weighing 350 freaking pounds and being like, damn, you're a loser. You're a loser. You are a victim. You have done this. I realized a really important truth because I asked myself a question. What are you willing to do to have the life that you want to have?
Right. That's the question.
The answer was no excuses, just results. Mm-hmm. And what that meant is that I would no longer negotiate with myself. I would no longer play the victim because it was everybody's fault. Dude, it was your fault, the community's fault, my family's fault, Obama's fault. It was everybody's fault that Michael's life was so bad except Michael. And what I realized, and a truth that I think people need to understand, is that where you are in your life is actually on you.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you're culpable for the bad things. Look, it's not me. My mom cut this finger off, 5 skin grafts. It's not me, the cuts and the burns on my arms. That ain't on me. I'm not responsible for that. Neither are you for any of the bad things that happen. But you have to understand reality. You are no longer a child. And in me understanding that reality, everything changed. And so for the people, to your point, to your question, how do you make the mindset shift? You acknowledge that you are not good enough yet.
And again, I like how you keep ending off with yet, because I'm not saying that won't ever be. I remember, and then we got to move to the next section. But I remember when I first had started podcasting, back to that, and I had told one of my friends, he like an influencer, he a DJ, all that stuff. Like he up there. And I remember he said, and I said, how do I get something to the extent of how do I get money or something like that? And he said, I said, should I put like my Cash App or something in my store? This was like 2018. This was years ago. He said, no, don't do that. You ain't Joe Budden yet. And it was in there when I laughed at it, but it was like, and it was funny where I'm getting to now. But it's interesting how things have, shifted. So before we move to the next section, let's go ahead and define PTSD for those that don't know. This is, post-traumatic stress disorder. So it affects approximately 3.5% of U.S. adults every year. An estimated 1 in 11 people will be diagnosed with PTSD in their lifetime. So in a lot of these cases, y'all, I think we've grown over the hump of thinking that it only affected people in the military. Because as we've described these different scenarios, those are different forms of PTSD. So let's move to the weekly sabbatical, okay? So this is the section where we just reflect and we just talk about things and how it relates to us, and if we can maybe go back and change something, add something, whatever. Me personally, I wouldn't change anything. I'm glad everything happened the way it did, the good, the bad, and the indifferent, just because I'm here where I am today. And what's to say if it didn't happen, I wouldn't be. So if you had to do a rough guesstimate, just a guesstimate, if you had to, which I think you kind of answered, and I'm gonna see if you want to stick with that answer, percentage-wise, how would you say? How many people do you say how many people are affected by negatively affected by the childhood trauma? Would you stick with that in the 97, 98, as you said earlier, or would you just kind of like what?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's everybody, man. It's everybody. I mean, you're not getting out of this unscathed. We're all taking a little bit of damage. It's just there's different levels of it. You know what I'm saying? And I think, especially generationally, our generation is the first group of people who aren't spanking their kids. Mm-hmm. Think about that. Like, do you know how insane it is to hit a child? Like, that is the dumbest thing ever. And so if you do that, there's a continuation of abuse, right? Well, rewind that. Your parents, they're before them, before them, before them, before them. So you got all these people who've been hurt. And what's the old adage? Hurt people hurt people. And so one of the things that my hope is, on a long enough timeline, that we'll get to this place where conversations like this are pointless and obsolete, right? It's going to be a minute, but, I hope that we get there because, if we can increase and make some massive changes in the world, well, maybe it goes from everybody to nobody.
So now this is either a really smart question or a really stupid one. Do you believe that a person's childhood trauma can affect their decision-making in a positive way?
I'm living proof of it. And so are hundreds of thousands of people around the world, millions. So are tons of my clients. I mean, I think everybody can. But you're not going to get that without making decisions. You're not going to get that without truth. You're not going to get that without the willingness to step into the discomfort of, things like therapy and coaching and personal development and books and podcasts like this. And so I would say everyone can come out of this in a positive way, but there's a lot of decisions and choices that you got to throw down in between there.
And why do you feel that survivors need like a coach or a mentor?
I love that question. More people need to ask me that question. Here's the truth about it. If I could do anything differently 11 years ago, starting at the beginning of when I decided to take this journey seriously,
Mm-hmm.
I would have hired a coach before I went to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I really, really needed was behavioral changes. I need to understand mindset in the way that I do now. I needed to understand the importance of making my bed, of waking up on time, of having a routine, of physical fitness, of journaling and meditation and personal development and growth. I've read 0 books when I was in my early 20s, and I'm well over 500 now. And so it's like I needed someone to be like, dude, read a book, dummy, right? And I think there's an accountability that's there. So I do believe, and this is my opinion, I think everyone needs a coach, because once you get into the real world, like it's like you're swimming in the ocean by yourself unless you have reached out for help. And the longer you swim in that ocean, the more likely you're going to drown. And I think the real way to not succumb to the pressures of the waves and find yourself capsized in this is you have to say, I need someone who's done this before to show me how to swim.
Okay. Okay. So let's reflect. Okay. So for me, I had two different therapists, as I said plenty of times on this show. One was a black woman, one was a black man. They were totally different, but they were both effective for me. And as I reflect about like my decisions and, have I had childhood trauma? Absolutely. Some examples for those that don't know, we named quite a few, but even smaller ones that are effects of childhood trauma, such as not asking for help, cutting people off without warning. That's our favorite. This generation, especially the black community, we love to do that. That's our favorite thing to do. We'll get on Instagram with the quickness talking about somebody we didn't cut off. Oh, I ain't talking to them no more. We love doing that. And having issues with the spirit of rejection. So honestly, putting myself on blast, I know for me, I will always say, like, at women, I don't shoot. They shoot at me. And it wasn't just because I thought like, oh, I'm the hottest thing walking. It was just because growing up like that fat kid, dealing with that a lot. So then as I got older, and it was the kind of the Mike Jones effect. Back then they didn't want me. Now I'm hot, they all on me. I'm like, let me I still just kind of play it cool, but I'm not like most men who just, let's call it what it is, thirsty. And they just, it's kind of like how we do with podcast marketing, where you come up with this script and you send it to a bunch of different people. And some people respond, some people don't, but you still know, but you're gonna get somebody. I feel like that's how most dudes think, like, I'm gonna send the same message. Somebody gonna get it. So when it comes down to that, and as far as decision making and rejection, I'm sure you've seen a lot of your clients that have dealt with rejection or trying to get over it. So to anybody, because it's different forms of rejection, but in short, anybody who may deal with some type of rejection, what's maybe what's the word, or a tip or a suggestion?
Well, I mean, everybody's going to get rejected. Do you know who Tim Story is?
Yeah.
All right. Tim Story is arguably probably the most famous coach on planet Earth. For those who don't know, Oprah's coach. He's coached everybody from, I mean, you name him. He's coached, oh my God, what is that guy's name? Who plays Iron Man?
I know exactly. I can't think of his name, but I know he's talking about.
Face. He's Tropic Thunder, Iron Man. Anyway, Robert Downey Jr. So
Yeah.
he's coached all these guys, right? Hugely famous. Took me 4 years to get him on my show. 4 years. I got rejected every single time. I don't care. Being told no does not mean no to me. Now it's context. Let's be clear. Don't take this out of context, please. It's go and get what you want. Go and chase your life. Go and build the thing. Understand that you're going to be rejected. And you're probably being rejected because you're not putting out the same energy. Like, so since you brought up the dating thing, why don't we say that real quick? So, if you're looking up to a certain kind of partner and they won't give you the time of day, it's because you're not on the same wavelength. You haven't done what you need to do yet. And that's the thing, man. It's like, if you're fishing and you're just like, I'm sliding in all the DMs, it's unhealthy. You're not going to get anything there's no fulfillment in it. People chase that because of the high of the dopamine hit. I don't have any notifications on my phone. You can like it, you can subscribe, you can DM me, I have no idea because I'm not going to get into the dopamine hit of it. And,
Yeah.
and that's the thing I try to teach people all the time is like, if you will take off all the notifications on your phone and only, because you can do this on phones now,
Right.
do not disturb on, only have a handful of people who are like, I have to, and something happens, these people need to reach me. Nobody else matters.
Yeah.
So when you're like, oh man, I keep getting rejected. Well, you're gonna keep getting rejected. I fully like right before we hopped on this, I've been trying to get this person on my show. They're an Olympian. Everybody knows who they are. I won't say their name until they get on. They just told me no again for like the sixth time. That ain't gonna stop me. I
Yeah.
promise you. Next week, I'm gonna send them another message. You got to be okay knowing that rejection is because you have not created enough value yet. I'll put it into business sense. There are never objections in price unless value is absent.
Mm.
And a lot of you guys and girls, and however you identify, whatever, the reason that you're getting rejected because you are not bringing value in any capacity.
Love it. All right. So now I want him to kind of piggyback off of this. So it has 7 ways to heal your childhood trauma. This comes from casapalmera.com. It says, first, acknowledge and recognize the trauma for what it is. You said that. So that's a good one. It says, reclaim control. I think that's a good one. It says, seek support and don't isolate yourself. I really love that because I'm a firm believer that isolation is cool for a season, but that can't be a lifestyle because sometimes you'll get too much to yourself. And then when you always by yourself and you believe, oh, I can figure it out on my own, well, then who's telling you you're wrong? And I heard that years ago and it blew me out the water because it's just like, if you always, people are like, oh, I just handle everything by myself. Well, who's telling you you're wrong? Nobody, because you think everything you do is right. Take care of your health. That's mental, physical, emotional. You don't want to go to work today, don't go. I'm
True.
always be an advocate of that. Learn the true meaning of acceptance and letting go. I think that's a hard one for people to let go and to just accept stuff for what it is. Sometimes we create images of what we think it should be or who we think this person should be, and we just can't get out of it. And maybe they sold us this person a disillusion, but at some point you have to accept people for what they didn't showed you. Simple. I feel like it's a simple one. It says replace bad habits with good ones. You can be here all day with that one, but it says 21 days to create a new habit. So I've never made it to 21 days. So that's my challenge to myself. I want to create a good habit and I want to challenge myself with 21 days. And then the last one is simple. Be patient with yourself. And I think you said that earlier. Like, I think people are too hard on themselves, and you have to be patient with yourself because you're only human. You're gonna make mistakes. Nobody's perfect, and that's pretty much it with that.
Yeah.
So let's move into the final segment for the day, game time. All right, so this game time, I decided to call it Childish Decisions. I'm going to name a few scenarios, and you're going to tell me whether or not, I mean, in the sense they are kind of childish, but I want you to tell me whether or not it's childish in a negative way or it's just like, it's childish, but it's like, whatever. It's not that serious. You know what I mean? All right, you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. The first one, going to a club every weekend broke.
I mean, the truth about that is People do that. It's the same reason people will go buy a Louis Vuitton belt and they don't have any money. Because you're praying to God that you'll find fulfillment in it. And you're just not going to.
Okay. Name calling when something doesn't go your way.
You got to kill that immediately. That's so massively irresponsible. And what I mean by that is, and look, it's learned behavior, right? Growing up, I'll give you context. My own mother and stepfather would call me stupid, dumb, good for nothing, worthless, fat cat, like all these terrible things. And I dated this woman in my early 20s who was a massive empath. Now, obviously, I have the words for it, but I didn't then. And she was just the kindest, most sweet person. And I was just so obliteratingly mean to her. You've got to do this inner work. If you are calling people names and you're not 6 years old, you're in trouble. You're in massive, massive trouble. And you need to do something about your life immediately.
Crying when you're under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I think that's standard. I think a lot of people go through that. I think the more important part is allowing yourself the ability to cry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't disallow that. Don't, one of the things that I recognized when I was about 25, I hadn't cried in 15 years.
Wow.
My grandma died, my mom died, my 3 childhood best friends got murdered. I didn't cry one time. So, and that's because it literally got beat out of me. If you cry, I'll give you something to cry about. If you cry, I'll hit you harder. It literally got beat out of me. And my stepfather was a fucking monster. And so it took me a very long time to be able to step into that emotion. And I encourage people, please cry. Please let that exist. You got to let that stuff out.
Okay. Definitely. Watching cartoons all day.
If that's your job. Look, I mean, you got to have breaks, like do your thing, like I'll find myself, I can kind of time it these days about once every 2 months. I'm going to be like, man, I went so hard. I've gone nonstop. I'm going to play video games all day.
Yeah.
About once every 2 months. It happens a Sunday. I can almost measure my clock by it, right? Outside of that doesn't exist. You'll never see any consoles. There's no controllers. The effort it takes for me to hook up my console is like 20 minutes, right? So I take away the things that are simple because they get in your way. If you're like, man, my dream's not coming true, and you watch cartoons all day, you might want to ask yourself what you're doing with your life.
And that's the thing, man, because like I got about 4 or 5 games I still need to beat. And like I keep going, it's like I have my intervals. Maybe not, it might be about the same, honestly. And like I go in, I play a big chunk of them, get to a part, and then it's like I just stop playing them. And it's like I'll do it for a routine. Like I may even do it for like 2 weeks. Come home, play the game. I had 2 games. I bought it once, play this game for a little bit, and then switch over, play the other one. And I did it for a while, and I just stopped. And I got a new one, and I just stopped. So I'm trying to finish them because it's taking too long. And I feel like they can be inspiration for my other projects that I'm working on.
Sure, I get it. And sometimes what I will do sometimes is if there's a game coming out, because I mean we grew up in the gaming generation. It's the same way people watch baseball or whatever. Like I'm not watching baseball, but Cyberpunk came out 2 years ago, and I literally blocked out 3 days on my calendar to play that game. And like to me, that felt far more responsible than like I'm gonna try to fit it in where I can, because that's not how my life works. So it was literally on the calendar, and I said 3 days, no matter what happens. Like I'm fucking Cheetos and Mountain Dew, and like I'm in that mode. But you can't let that be your norm. If that's your norm, good luck.
All right. This one is pretty simple. Blaming everybody when things go wrong.
Yeah. Keep blaming people and watch your life not change.
All right. And the last one, eating Dino nuggets.
Oh my, don't, please, no, God, no. Read a book called Paleo Cure. Read a book called Paleo Cure. Read anything by Sisson. Read anything by Mark Hyman, excuse me. Read anything about the genetic modification of the slurry that they put in to make those Dino nuggets, and I promise you won't do it. The carcinogens inside of those processed foods are so freaking dangerous. Like, I'll give you an example. They're in vitamin B12. My friend Gary Brecka, who's a freaking genius, taught me this. Um, there's a chemical in there called cyanocobalamin,
Mm-hmm.
and they put B12 in all kinds of processed products, including even things like almond milk and your Flintstones vitamin, right? Cyanocobalamin is actually a chemical that is so dangerous that you have to have a transport license that is special for it, in the same way that you would if you transported napalm,
Mm.
and they put that in your food.
I believe it. I look. I
That's
believe
the
it.
problem. Everybody's like, "Yep, I get it," and then they eat it anyway. Don't eat
Well,
it.
here's the thing. Though. So with me, I don't. So when I first started losing weight, everybody who knows knows. But first started losing weight, I just changed my diet, added more water, more vegetables, cut back on a lot of stuff. Had my days where I do whatever here and there, but not like that.
Mm-hmm.
After so many years, I didn't realize it until late last year. That stopped working. So I need to do something different. So I've been in the 240-ish for years. I was originally 285, and then I was in the 240-ish for years. And I was like, I want to do something different. So started doing low carb, not keto, low carb. And but the trick to it, any diet or any lifestyle change, I like to, that's the real word, is you still have to allow yourself to have a day where you just do whatever. Similar fashion with you having all your work and you scheduling days to play the game.
100%.
You have to have those days. And you done lost more weight than me. So I'm sure you have your days where you like, you know what? I'm gonna have this today. I'm eat like that today.
Yeah.
So, and it's just so funny, and I say this, and I ain't trying to be shady, but I gotta throw it in there. It just kills me when people give weight loss advice and they never lost no weight.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It just kills me with that. But anyway, long story short, it's the same thing. Now I haven't eaten the Dino Nuggets in a long time, but I'm not gonna lie. From what I remember, they was good. So I'm glad you brought that up because when I go to
You know what does taste better than good? Not being dead.
all right, the question and challenge for this week. Okay, so in short, it's a simple one. Remember, y'all, 3 people can win $20 on Cash App each month. Do it. It's not hard. And you doing something that's aiding with your growth, that's helping with your growth. So do that. So, how has childhood trauma affected your decision as an adult? So, after this episode, you'll be able to identify that. You may say, oh, this happened to me, and this is why I do this. Simple. That's taking accountability of your life. And, it's as easy as that. All right. So before you go, first of all, I appreciate you for coming through. Dropped a lot of gems. We had a few laughs here and there. So I'll always love when that happens. Anything else you want to tell the people, you want to add before we go?
Yeah, look, this journey's hard. I mean, even for me, even to this day, like, it's still difficult. But when you show up and you're patient and you give yourself some grace, and sometimes a really strong kick in your own ass,
Yeah.
your life will be different. Pick your goal, choose who you want to be, aim towards that thing, become that person, give yourself the space to be the hero of your own story.
All right. I definitely can dig it. So you'll see his stuff in the bio. He has a great podcast. If you want to reach out to him, get some life coaching, all that good stuff. He's here for you. So I appreciate you again for coming. PSA signing out. Always remember, keep your head up like your neck hurt. Remember who you are and make your mind up. Don't let it make you.